Hi there, one and all, and a very warm welcome to Saga's Not Going Out Club's Right Time to Write with me, Tony McHale. So, we're on our fifth session. We're really cracking through them now. Only one more session to go after this, and then off you'll go to write your radio drama, your TV drama, your sitcom, your stage play, your film, or your novel. But first, before we get on to today's session, let's talk about what we've been doing so far. The first session was all about the idea for the story that you wanted to tell, and how we got the idea down into just 2 sentences maximum so we keep you focused on that idea. And the second was about how we developed that idea, and we developed it not in a linear fashion, but in a much more creative way by just putting down any ideas you had that was connected to the core idea. So it could be a line, it could be a character, it could be a scene, it could be a plot twist, it could be actually anything. So the third session was all about character and how we created 3-dimensional, fully rounded characters. And we did this by writing detailed biographies for all of our main characters so that we knew every aspect of those characters. And the fourth session was all about nailing the story. We took the elements we'd been working with, put them together, and created a linear story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And off you went to write your treatment stroke short story for that idea. So that's where we are so far. So the fifth session is going to be all about dialogue and stage directions. But before we get on to that, I'm going to give you the answers to the 3 trivia questions I posed at the end of the last session. And they were all about first lines in novels. We talked about how we wanted to create something at the beginning of our piece of work that would actually hook the audience in and make them want to know more, read more, see more. Okay, so these novels were all different novels, and here's the first one. It was a bright, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13. It was a bright, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13. I'm pretty sure most people have got that one, and it was, yes, George Orwell's 1984. And the second one was, when he was nearly 13, my brother Jem got his arm broken at the elbow. When he was nearly 13, my brother Jem got his arm broken at the elbow. So I think most people will probably have got that as well. It is, of course, Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird. And now the third one, Hale knew before he'd been in Brighton 3 hours that they meant to kill him. Hale knew before they'd been in Brighton 3 hours that they meant to kill him. I think there's a little clue in that line, and that's Brighton. Yes, it's Brighton Rock by Graham Greene. 3 very different novels, 3 very different opening lines, but all lines that would want you to continue to know what was going to happen, what was coming next. And so, with that in mind, let's move on to the dialogue and stage directions. Now, dialogue I've tried to put down in 3 little points to give you an idea about what good dialogue consists of. Now, the first point is authenticity. Good dialogue has got to be authentic, and by that I mean real to the character and his environment. To put that down as an example, and this is an extreme example, right? To put it down as an example, if I had a character that was born and bred in Balham, and the furthest they'd ever been was Clapham, and they came out with a line such as, hey, don't go down that snicket, it's icy, then it would jar, because the word snicket is very peculiar to the north of England, and it's not basically a southern expression. So we're not using the right words for the right character and his environment. If you could justify it in some way, and you'd have to justify it via that biography we talked about earlier, then maybe you could make it work. But normally that wouldn't work. So it's about getting the authenticity, and you do that by listening and learning from people's dialogues, either on the radio, on the TV, or just in the pub or wherever. You could even download it these days. But getting that authentic dialogue down. The second point is about hearing the voice of the character. So you hear how that character sounds in your head as you write it down. When I was an actor many years ago now, I used to be not very good at doing accents. But strangely enough, I can hear them very clearly when I'm writing them down. And I can hear the voices of my characters and how each voice is different and how each voice has its own rhythm and its own tone. I speak totally different to probably most of the people that are watching this. And that would be my own peculiar rhythm and my own peculiar tone. And that's what you're trying to aim for when you're hearing characters' voices. And the third point is about not forcing in dialogue. It's so easy at times to force dialogue in so you can tell the story you want to tell. It has to happen naturally. Let the dialogue work through and happen in a natural way, even if it takes a bit longer. Then you can edit and tighten up after that. So that's quickly about dialogue. And dialogue is all about practice as well. The more you actually do it, the better you become at it. And when you've done your dialogue, when you've written it down, read it out, get somebody else to read it with you, or even better, get a couple of actors to read it out to you, and then you'll be able to hear exactly what it is that's going down there, how good or bad the dialogue is, so that you can sort of make any adjustments you have to do. Rewriting is essential. Don't ever be ashamed of rewriting. Rewriting is virtually a good thing every time. Okay, and now on to stage directions. Stage directions, I get two questions asked quite regularly. And the first question is, do you write the whole of the stage directions yourself? And the answer is, yes, you write all the stage directions. It's exactly like writing a novel, except in a much more succinct way. So what you do is, if you're wanting a description of something, a person, an action, a location, then you're going to have to write that down. In a novel, you might write it down and it take you, 2 or 3 paragraphs, maybe a couple of pages, whatever. In script form, you have to be much more succinct and tighter about it, because it's essential that you don't lose a reader's attention. A script, even though it will be visually seen by the majority of people, the first person will read it. He will be the first person that gets an idea of what the script is about, he or she. And if they don't get grabbed in by the beginning, if you're doing very lengthy stage directions or character descriptions, then they will just lose interest and the script will go on a pile and not be used at all. So the thing about it is to try and keep it succinct as possible. And the second question people ask me about stage directions is, how detailed do you make your stage directions? Well, the truth is, I make them as detailed as they have to be to get across the feeling, the atmosphere, the character and the location. What I rarely do is include camera angles or camera shots. I rarely include those because I believe that's a director's job. The only time I would include them is when I think it's imperative for the story, that I need it to tell the story, and because, as always, story is God. Just to give you a quick example about stage directions, I'm going to read you out the opening section of a film script, right? And you'll see that when we talk about this, that each scene has its own little heading, which is whether it's interior or exterior, or what the location is, or whether it is day or night. And each scene has that as a heading. So this is a script so that is set in England in 1877. If you can imagine, that's superimposed on the screen. And it says, the first scene, exterior, Windsor, cobbled street, night, a deafening noise, really loud, horses' hooves pounding at speed on wet cobbles. We cut to exterior, growler cab, driver's seat, night. Now, growler cab is very similar to a Hansom cab. It's another horse-drawn vehicle used in Victorian era. So we're in the exterior of the cab. The rain is lashing down into the gnarled face of the driver. He urges on his two horses with his whip while screaming at them, "Go on, go on!" And then we cut to the exterior of the horses. The whip cracks over the heads of the horses. Their nostrils flare as their coats sweat and their muscles strain to go faster. The noise is still deafening. Cut to the exterior of the growler and on the cobbled street. And there is the cab, careering along the rain-drenched, empty cobbled streets. In the distance, silhouetted by the moonlight, is Windsor Castle. The driver constantly cracking his whip. That's setting the scene. Now we go to inside the growler cab. We cut to interior growler cab, night, and we're going to look at some of the descriptions we get very quickly for some major characters. Being buffeted around inside are Adam Adamant and Lady Constance Lydia Blackwell, and Constance's maid Martha. Adamant is the epitome of a Victorian gent, dapper, refined, erect and complete with sword stick. He stares intensely out of the window. Constance, in any century, would be beautiful. Refined features, an air of confidence mixed with vulnerability, and despite the unsexy Victorian garb, complete with bonnet, she's somehow very sexy. Martha's just 16 and is clinging on for dear life as the carriage throws her about. So there, very quickly, we get a description of three of the major characters. We already know what the driver looks like, gnarled face, so he's not some young whippersnapper. This is an old driver. So we're getting very quick snapshots of what these people are like. And that is what we need to do with our stage directions. If you look at the notes that accompany this session, that script is included, so you'll be able to see what I'm talking about then. So that's it for this week. That's the stage directions and dialogues. I'm going to leave you with three questions, three little trivia questions, which are all about dialogue. I would like you to tell me which film, book and play these three come from. The first is from a film, and the line is, "Oh no, it wasn't the aeroplanes, it was beauty killed the beast." Oh no, it wasn't the airplanes, it was beauty killed the beast. And the second one is actually from a novel. "Your firm writes most highly on your talents. They say you are a man of good taste." And I pause because that's indicated in the dialogue as it's written down. "Your firm writes most highly of your talents. They say you are a man of good taste." And the last one is from a play. This is probably the most difficult one. And it goes something like, "I got brown sandwiches and green sandwiches. It's either very new cheese or very old meat." So I got brown sandwiches or green sandwich. It's either very new cheese or very old meat. And there we have it. Okay, so that's it for this session. Go off and do your assignment, which is, this time I would like you to take 2 or 3 scenes from the 15-page treatment story you have done, and I want you to write the dialogue for those scenes. And remember what I said earlier, get them tried out, read them out, get somebody else to read them with you, or preferably get some actors to read them, and keep writing them. Because as I said, writing dialogue is all about practice, because the more you do it, the better you become. So thank you very much for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this session. I hope you join us for the last session next week. In the meantime, remember, we have 3 rules, and the 3 rules are: writer's right, simple isn't easy, and there are no rules. Okay, enjoy your writing, stay well, stay safe, and stay alert. Take care. Hope to see you again soon.